California has long been known as one of the most aggressive states in the nation when it comes to enacting new firearm regulations, and the year 2025 is proving no different, even after several high-profile legal defeats in federal courts over the past few years. Lawmakers in Sacramento are moving ahead with legislation that many see as a direct challenge to the constitutional rights of law-abiding gun owners. The state's approach often involves passing laws it knows will face lengthy legal challenges, yet enforcing them in the meantime until a final court decision is reached, a tactic that can have real-world consequences for those caught between shifting legal lines. In recent months, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued rulings that struck down certain long-standing restrictions, most notably California's 1 in 30 purchase limit for handguns and semi-automatic centerfire rifles. That law had required residents to wait 30 days between purchases, effectively rationing their ability to exercise a right recognized under the Second Amendment. For supporters of gun rights, these victories represented significant steps toward restoring individual choice. But any celebration has been short-lived. The California legislature has been in its summer recess for most of July, but as lawmakers return in mid-August, several controversial bills are immediately back on the agenda. Among them are three measures attracting intense attention: AB 1078, which would replace the old 1 in 30 limit with a slightly expanded 3 in 30 restriction, AB 1127, known widely as the Glock Ban, which could effectively prohibit the sale of most Glock pistols and similar designs, and SB 704, a bill requiring background checks for the purchase of standalone firearm barrels. AB 1078 is California's legislative response to the Ninth Circuit's decision in Nguyen v. Banta, which found the state's 1 in 30 law unconstitutional. Rather than accepting the court's ruling and eliminating the restriction entirely, lawmakers have chosen to repackage it. Under AB 1078, an individual would be allowed to purchase up to 3 firearms within any 30-day period. While framed as a compromise, opponents argue that this remains a form of rights rationing, differing only in scale from the policy the court already struck down. The rationale from supporters is straightforward. They claim that limiting multiple purchases within short timeframes reduces illegal trafficking and straw purchases, situations where someone legally eligible buys firearms in quantity to pass them on to prohibited persons. They cite data from the California Department of Justice suggesting that a subset of crime guns can be traced back to such transactions. However, opponents note that these justifications have been challenged repeatedly in court, and that empirical evidence tying 1-per-month laws to significant reductions in crime is limited. What makes AB 1078 notable in August 2025 is its legislative progress and timing. On July 8, 2025, the bill was heard in the Senate Public Safety Committee. From there, it moved swiftly toward the Senate Appropriations Committee, one of the final stops before a floor vote. As of the week leading up to August 15th, the bill is positioned for a committee review during the legislature's first week back from recess, making it a near-term priority for both supporters and opponents. If passed by the Appropriations Committee, it could reach the Senate floor within days, and then advance to the governor's desk for signature. The bill also includes a contingency clause. If the state were to win an appeal restoring the old 1 in 30 limit, the 3 in 30 provision would automatically revert back to the stricter single purchase limit after 30 days. Critics argue this reveals the true intent, not to compromise, but to restore the original restriction in full when possible. For gun owners, the stakes are significant. The Ninth Circuit's earlier ruling was seen as a clear rejection of rationing firearm purchases on constitutional grounds. To see a similar restriction resurface, even in modified form, is viewed as both defiant toward the judiciary and harmful to individual rights. Civil liberties organizations have warned that if AB 1078 becomes law, it will almost certainly face new legal challenges, potentially leading to another protracted court battle. From a constitutional perspective, the debate centers on whether the government can limit how frequently a right may be exercised, even if it permits some use within a given time frame. Opponents frame the bill as equivalent to telling citizens they may only attend church 3 times a month, or publish a certain number of articles in a set period. Examples intended to underline the perceived absurdity of rationing a constitutionally protected activity. Meanwhile, law enforcement groups and some legislators maintain that without such a cap, the door is open for more firearms to flow into the black market. They point to other states, such as Virginia and New Jersey, which have implemented similar purchase-limiting laws in past years. However, even in those cases, effectiveness data remains contested. And in some jurisdictions, the restrictions were rolled back after they were found to have little measurable impact on violent crime rates. As of mid-August 2025, AB 1078 sits at a critical juncture. With the legislature reconvening, the next 2 weeks will likely determine whether the bill advances to the governor's desk before the end of the current session. Given the political makeup of California's legislature, where the majority party has historically supported restrictive gun measures, passage remains a strong possibility. That said, any enactment will not be the final word. Legal challenges are all but guaranteed, and the cycle of lawmaking and litigation may well continue for years to come. While AB 1078 seeks to reframe a restriction previously struck down, AB 1127 introduces an entirely different form of limitation, one that targets a specific class of firearms and their design features. Nicknamed the Glock Ban by critics, this bill would remove many Glock pistols and similar handguns from California's roster of approved handguns for sale. The stated basis for this measure is the potential for certain handguns, particularly some Glock models, to be illegally converted into fully automatic weapons through the use of small, easily concealable devices, sometimes referred to as Glock switches or autosears. These conversion devices are already prohibited under both federal and California law, but supporters of AB 1127 argue that preventing the sale of firearms most susceptible to such modifications is a proactive way to curb their proliferation. Under California's existing safe handgun roster system, only firearms meeting a list of state-mandated safety and design criteria may be sold by licensed dealers. AB 1127 would amend the criteria so that any semi-automatic pistol that could be readily converted into an automatic weapon would be ineligible for listing, because the definition of readily converted is broad and based on potential rather than actual modifications. Critics contend that the bill would effectively ban not only new sales of most Glock pistols, but also a range of similar models from other manufacturers. The potential impact is significant. Glock pistols are among the most popular sidearms for law enforcement, civilian self-defense, and competitive shooting. Dealers, shooting sports organizations, and civil rights groups warn that removing such a widely used brand from the legal marketplace will push buyers toward private or out-of-state sales, creating enforcement challenges and potentially reducing oversight. As of mid-August 2025, AB 1127 has already passed through several key committees along largely partisan lines. It is expected to appear in the Senate Appropriations Committee during the first week the legislature is back in session. Given its support among influential legislators, the measure is seen as having a high likelihood of advancing to the Senate floor before the end of the month. If enacted, it would almost certainly prompt immediate litigation, challenging the vagueness of the readily converted standard and questioning whether banning an entire brand due to illegal actions of some constitutes an overbroad restriction. The third bill, SB 704, takes aim not at complete firearms, but at a major component, the barrel. Traditionally, firearm barrels have not been subject to the same purchase restrictions as complete guns, particularly when sold separately as replacement or aftermarket parts. SB 704 would change that by requiring that any purchase of a firearm barrel, even one not attached to a gun, be processed through a licensed dealer, with a full background check conducted on the buyer. The bill would also mandate that detailed information about the transaction be sent to the California Department of Justice, DOJ, for storage in a searchable database. Supporters claim this would close a loophole that allows individuals to acquire parts for assembling or modifying firearms without the same scrutiny applied to full weapons. They argue that in the era of ghost guns and home-assembled firearms, controlling the sale of critical components is essential to preventing untraceable weapons from entering circulation. Opponents see SB 704 as an unnecessary expansion of government oversight. They point out that a barrel alone cannot function as a firearm and argue that treating it as though it were a complete gun imposes costs and burdens on lawful hobbyists. Competitive shooters and gunsmiths. Privacy advocates also raise concerns about the permanent storage of detailed records for parts that, in many cases, do not have serial numbers or unique identifiers. By August 2025, SB 704 has cleared the Senate and moved to the Assembly, where it has been amended in committee, although it does not yet have a scheduled hearing date in its next committee. Its continued movement indicates that it remains active. Like the other two bills, if passed, it is likely to face legal challenges, particularly on grounds of overbreadth and potential conflict with federal definitions of firearm parts. As California's legislature reconvenes in August 2025, AB 1078, AB 1127, and SB 704 illustrate a broader strategy, passing new layers of firearms regulation even in the face of recent court defeats. For supporters of the bills, these measures are necessary tools to combat gun violence and illegal modifications. For opponents, they are unconstitutional overreaches that ration rights, target lawful products, and expand surveillance of lawful activity. The coming weeks will be critical. Committee votes, floor debates, and potential gubernatorial action could set the stage for another round of court battles. For Californians and for observers nationwide, these bills will serve as yet another test of how far a state can go in regulating the right to keep and bear arms under modern judicial scrutiny.